Hi everyone, this is Simon and welcome to another marvelous video. The King in Black story arc, which began in Venom Volume 4, Issue 30, showcased the eldritch god of darkness, Null, aka the King in Black, making his way to Earth 616 for conquering. Every superhero on the planet tried to stop him, and it was Eddie Brock, aka Venom, who vanquished him in the final issue, Venom Volume 4, Issue 35. Following this, Eddie became the new King in Black and gained ultimate control over the Symbiote hive mind. However, with the power of traveling freely across space and time, the new problem for Eddie was far beyond comprehensible. His son Dylan was being constantly hunted by Alchemax, while there were other kings in black as well. So without any further delay, let us dive into the 5th volume of Venom and learn more about the 5 twisted and disturbing kings in black. Before we go into our explanation, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Venom 2021, written by Al Ewing and Ram V. Venom Volume 5 begins with Eddie's life as the Symbiote God. He could remotely control all symbiotes and believe no one would ever have to worry about symbiotes. While traveling through deep space in search of new hosts, 4 symbiotes detect a distress signal from a nearby ship and alert Eddie, who responds by remote piloting one of them and reaching out for the spaceship. He named the 4 symbiotes after the Beatles, John, Paul, Ringo, and George. They all entered the ship and began searching for survivors. Eddie kept his consciousness bouncing from one symbiote to another. He was then remote piloting George, but when Paul alerted him about the Skrull space pirate on the ship, he hopped into Paul and confronted the Skrulls, defeating and restraining them. Suddenly, George called out for Eddie, stating that he was terrified. Eddie bounced back into George and noticed Ringo with red glowing eyes, butchering the ship's crew in the escape pods. Clearly, Ringo was being remotely piloted by someone else, and he calmly announced that he had a message from the future. Eddie began panicking and pondered if it was Null or Carnage resurrected, while Ringo informed Eddie that his tenure as the Kings of Black would soon end with the death of all those he cared about. Soon the entity controlling Ringo made him disintegrate into dust and fade away. Eddie realized that the distress signal from the spaceship would soon invite other forces to arrest the pirates, and with the death of the crew members, the symbiotes would be accused. He immediately ordered the other symbiotes to evacuate the ship and pondered about his new mysterious threat and the safety of his son Dylan. Meanwhile, Dylan is shown struggling, growing up without his parents. Although the symbiote sleeper is always beside him in the form of a cat, he cannot seem to stop thinking about his father, Eddie. Dylan wonders if Eddie, being a god, has a lot to worry about, or if he's just bored of his son and has not returned to him. Eddie invests all their time thinking of ways to protect his son, and since he can move forward and back in time, he makes several visits to Dylan, guiding him and asking him not to bond with the Venom symbiote. Dylan arrives at Eddie's apartment, and so do the henchmen of Alchemax. They were tasked to capture Dylan for his half-symbiote origin. They blast Eddie's apartment to nothing, following which Eddie is dead, and his consciousness is sent to a place known as the Garden of Time. This was where Eddie met the other Kings of Black. They were all revealed to be Eddie Brock himself in his different phases of life. Each king represents a certain nature of Eddie Brock, and they all revered one king, Meridius. Finnegan. Following the death of Eddie, his consciousness was sent to the Garden of Time, a world where everything was made out of Clintar goo. Eddie's time-displaced codex emerged from the lake and met Meridius, who warmly welcomed him and introduced him to other kings in black. Meridius explained to Eddie about the place and how he must learn to traverse through time to return. While the discussion takes place, another stranded grey-colored symbiote, King in Black named Finnegan, emerges from the Lake of the Abyss. Upon noticing Eddie, the new symbiote began rambling and begging him to listen to him once. However, one of the kings, Bedlam, lunged out before he could complete, stating that he hated Finnegan and began ripping him apart. Eddie lunged himself into a fight and delivered an uppercut to Bedlam, sending him away from Finnegan. Stating that he hated Eddie more, Bedlam charged at Eddie and bit his arm off. As Bedlam tried to eat Eddie, Finnegan even urged him to do so. However, Bedlam tossed Eddie away and left. with Finnegan. The entire event left Eddie perplexed. He tried to save Finnegan from Bedlam, who later asked Bedlam to kill him. He questioned Meridius about what just happened, to which the latter calmly stated that Finnegan was deranged, and his ramblings made Bedlam nervous. As Meridius is about to leave, the King in Black, Tyro, stops him to give some information, but forgets. This infuriates him, but he manages his calm and leaves into the time stream. Meridius then arrived at the point in time where the 4 symbiotes were rescuing the crew from the deranged spaceship, as shown at the beginning of issue 1. We see that it was Meridius who had taken control of Ringo and killed the crew members, and it was all to set things in a way that led Eddie to arrive at his garden. He had orchestrated a loop of events that led Eddie's demise. Before his death, Eddie had passed on the Venom symbiote to protect his son Dylan, who was facing his own struggles. He saw his dad dying, Alchemax was hunting him like an animal, and the messages from Eddie were perplexing. To add to his misery, Bedlam was sent to hurt him by Meridius. Dylan was attacked by Bedlam, following which the Venom symbiote bonded with him and gave Bedlam a tough fight. However, Bedlam got the best of him and impaled him. Meanwhile, Eddie, trapped in the Garden of Time, grows restless. He notices that the other kings in black avoided him for some reason and were clueless without Meridius around. Suddenly, Eddie began having visions of his son being attacked by Bedlam and started having a panic attack. Unable to calm his mind, he instinctively projected his consciousness back in time and landed in a heavily armored humanoid symbiote, also known as a war symbiote, at Kang's service. Taking adequate training from Kang and believing it could help him bring changes to his presence, he sent his consciousness to a symbiote left on Earth in the wake of Null's invasion and passed on a message to Archer Lyle about the events that will be occurring with him and his son. He ventured back to the point in time where Dylan was packing his bag, and also when Alchemax captured him. He helped his son get free and was again sucked into the time stream. Moments later, Eddie found himself in an ocean of vicious blood-red symbiote full of rage and hatred. He was perplexed but could also feel similarity with the rage. He was inside Bedlam when he was just about to impale Dylan, bonded with Venom. Eddie watched the entire act and screamed with intense pain and agony. His consciousness returned back to the Garden of Time, where he rose from the Clintar Lake. He then appeared in the form of Finnegan, Meridius, who was also present before him, and explained what exactly was happening. Bedlam was Eddie Brock, not from any alternate reality, but from his future. Meridius also adds that he cannot change the inevitable, and he will be killing his son. Eddie, aka Finnegan, snapped at this and attacked Meridius with his tendrils. He called him a liar and refuted his statements, but only to get absorbed by Meridius. While carrying Finnegan to the rest of the kings, he explained to him that all the kings of black and he himself was Eddie Brock. They were not from any alternate reality, but different phases of his life as a king in black. Meridius carried Finnegan to the rest of the kings, adding that this was his second iteration, a degenerated and the weakest one. Finnegan found a newly reconstructed Eddie, following which he started rambling to him exactly how it happened before. Soon Bedlam attacked and began tearing Finnegan apart, and the new Eddie tried to intervene and stop. Finnegan understood the reason behind Bedlam's rage, as Eddie always hated himself for what he was. While the new Eddie and Bedlam fight it out, Finnegan shouts out to Bedlam to kill the new Eddie, just like the way it happened before to him. Bedlam. In the Garden of Time, Bedlam continued beating Finnegan and tearing him apart until Meridius intervened and stopped him. Meridius asked Bedlam to move backwards in time to manifest in his symbiote flesh and stab Dylan with a knife in his chest. This explains a time loop, as the event of Bedlam emerging from Meridius's flesh while he was talking to Carson Weich had already happened before. Bedlam went furious after hearing the command from Meridius and slammed him with both arms. However, it was futile, and Bedlam agreed to follow his orders. Finnegan witnessed the entire conversation in despair, realizing how he had brought doom to himself and his son. He lamented how he would be killing every symbiote to make the Garden of Time in the future, but he was helpless. As he climbed a mountain, Wild, another king in black, arrived and tried initiating a conversation. However, his witty remarks infuriated him, and he began attacking him, only to learn that none of them could die in the garden. As rage began to take over Finnegan, he transformed into Bedlam and and tore Wilde apart. However, Eddie tried resisting the change and reverted to Finnegan. Wilde informed him that when he stabbed Dylan, being Bedlam, he noticed him alive, and this was all a process to make him stronger. When Finnegan stated that they were stuck, Wilde corrected him, stating that there was a way to leave the Garden of Time. Finnegan had previously tried moving his consciousness forward and backwards in time, but Meridius had blocked it. But Wilde gave him a new opening. Although he regretted telling him this, he explained to Finnegan that they could move their consciousness through other dimensions. Finnegan made no delay and sent his consciousness to Limbo. He manifested in his King in Black form, held captive inside a beaker of a demon alchemist. After fighting and defeating the demons and ogres, Eddie met Madeline Pryor and Chasm, who promised to help him find his son in exchange for some help. Eddie agreed without a second thought, following which Chasm ripped out all the memories of Eddie and transferred it into his old villainous self. Eddie, losing all his memories, attacked Spider-Man, the event that was showcased in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, Issue 15. After that, he was sent to attack the Krakoa's Manhattan headquarters to buy enough time for Hallows' Eve to steal a portable Cerebro containing a copy of Jean Grey's mind. At the headquarters, Eddie faced Synch, and after a fight, he abruptly realized that he was no longer bonded to the Venom symbiote, and his memories had been altered. In rage and fury, he finally transformed into Bedlam and sought to get back the Venom symbiote. He fought Dylan with the Venom symbiote and attacked him. Prior to this event, Dylan accepted his fate with the Venom symbiote and bonded to it to become Codex. He recalled his origin and planned on facing Bedlam with allies. Bedlam and Dylan confronted each other, but this time he was aided by Normie Osborn, the son of Liz Allen and Harry Osborn. Dylan made Normie bond with symbiote Rascal, and together they gave a tough fight to Bedlam. Bedlam was severely injured in the fight, but was later healed by Meridius and rescued by Madeline. Apologizing for messing with his mind, Madeline sent Bedlam to vent his rage on the demons. However, when Bedlam tried to attack Chasm, he was teleported into the depth of the dimension. He faced a trio of demons infected by the transmode virus and easily defeated them after tapping into his King in Black powers. He devoured the demons ruthlessly and faced the cyborg demon Darkoth. Time functioned differently in Limbo, and it split the battle between them into two different outcomes. In one scenario, Darkoth defeated Bedlam and cut him down using the Soul Sword. Eddie's Codex was tossed away from the symbiote, and he plunged into the depths of the symbiote hive mind, while the symbiote bonded with Darkoth and made his way to attack Asgard. In the other scenario, Bedlam killed Darkoth and returned to the Garden of Time. Wilde, the ongoing Venom 2021 comic series, is yet to showcase the events leading to the transition of Bedlam into Wilde. However, it can be assumed that after Eddie, as Bedlam, failed to reunite with his child and return to the garden failed, his bloodlust and rage burnt out, and he became Wilde. Every King in Black represented an aspect or phase of Eddie. Previously in Venom Volume 5, Issue 10, Meridius explained to Finnegan that after Bedlam's rage was over, Eddie would have nothing in him except for sarcasm and bitter cynicism. This version of him was Wilde, and he can be seen adding his sarcasm in situations. He played a crucial role in Eddie's transit into Bedlam. When he informed Eddie about the ways of escape in the garden, he dug the path for Finnegan to travel to Limbo and encounter events that turned him into Bedlam. Wilde regretted giving the information to Finnegan and realized that no matter what he tried or did, Eddie's path to becoming Meridius was inevitable. Tyro. Since the moment Eddie's Codex was reconstituted at the Garden of Time, he noticed Tyro to be a bootlicker for Meridius. As explained by Meridius to Eddie when he arrives at the garden as Finnegan, the process of transforming into Tyro follows Eddie's despair. When Wilde's cynicism and sarcasm failed to hold him in place, he gave up trying and desperately attempted to escape fate. Realizing that the only way of escaping the wrath of time was by only following Meridius, Tyro becomes his student and loyal follower. Throughout the series until now, Tyro can be seen looked down upon or silenced by Meridius on numerous occasions, and his submissive nature answers it all. In the story, when Finnegan is going insane with the thought of killing Dylan, Wilde tries comforting him by explaining that Dylan is alive and that the process is only to make him stronger. When he informed Finnegan about the possibility of projecting his consciousness into another dimension, Finnegan saw hope. However, Wilde, being his future self, was aware that the hopes were false and that there was no way way of escaping the time loop. When Finnegan departed to Limbo, Wilde repented for telling him the way and wished to have kept his mouth shut. He realized it was destiny, and no matter how much he tried, it would end up in the same way. Wilde accepted that there was no funny side to the situation and considered following the winning side, which was Meridius. Succumbed to despair, Wilde's symbiote became green, and he became Tyro. Meridius. Finally, we come to the last stage of Eddie's transformation, which happens after Eddie, being Tyro, follows the path carved by Meridius and fully accepts his fate. The final version of Eddie, or Meridius, has been orchestrating everything. His influence was first spotted when Ringo, one of Eddie's piloted symbiotes, killed the crew members and threatened Eddie during the mission to save survivors from a spaceship. That was when the cycle began, with Eddie's fear of protecting his son. Whatever happened with Dylan was all part of Meridius's conspiracy. It can be inferred that after Tyro learned and accepted that there was no other way to change his course, he moved on to making Dylan and Venom stronger. If pondered upon, each and everything Meridius did was used to make Dylan and Venom stronger. Meridius believed that the only way Dylan could be safe was if he accepted his role as the human symbiote hybrid and defeated him on all grounds. Meridius was not only responsible for sending Bedlam after Dylan, but also Alchemax. In the comic series, Alchemax could be seen hunting Dylan with all its resources. Following Senator Arthur Crane's speech against extraterrestrial organisms like symbiotes, we see Alchemax Foundation using all its resources and armed henchmen to capture Dylan. Meridius had used his time-traveling capabilities to help Life Foundation acquire wealth by investing in suitable firms, giving them more than enough resources to hunt for Dylan. The comic series so far have shown Meridius to be in control of everything, and every other character, including Eddie, has been playing their part to the inevitable. We are yet to learn more about Meridius and his transition with the upcoming issues, as well as what happens after he completely fulfills his goal. Conclusion. The chaotic confusion of the Venom 2021 series is far from a conclusion, leaving suspense and uncertainties about Eddie and Dylan's true destinies. When a fragment of Eddie's memory stated to Dylan that every child must overcome their father, it spoke volumes about the nature of the story. Eddie and his decisions are the actual reason for his demise. He chose to keep his child away from the Venom symbiote, refrained from bonding with the Venom symbiote when necessary, and assisted Dylan in numerous ways, which led to all the cacophony. After becoming the new King in Black, Eddie rarely interacted with his child, for which he went overprotective to make up for it. Eddie's entire cycle transitions from attempting to save his child to making him self-dependent and strong. Finnegan was growing insane, while Bedlam had already realized what was happening and hated himself. Bedlam was filled with rage, and he followed orders from Meridius only to hurt his past self. When the rage burnt out, Eddie found no meaning to his existence and sought to hide his despair behind bitter cynicism. He later decided to follow Meridius and learn a way out of this, thereby becoming Tyro. Tyro accepted all the rashness of Meridius and learnt that the only way to save his son was by making him stronger. Hence, he becomes Meridius and orchestrates everything to inflict pain on Dylan and Venom to make them stronger. And so with this, we have finally come to the end of our video, and we hope you've liked it. Needless to say, we are all eagerly waiting for the next episodes to see what happens to the storyline. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.